Tonight, renewed rhetoric from Donald Trump as a trade deadline looms.
Canada should be the 51st state, okay? It really should.
Raising tough questions as the president stalls negotiations.
I think Canada has to decide, is a deal necessary or is no deal better than a bad deal?
Why some believe the growing rift could help trade talks. And taking the temperature of national pride, just how patriotic are we?
This is the strongest year for flag sales by a considerable margin.
Plus, inclusion, acceptance, and celebration hit the streets of Canada's biggest city. What will the future of this festival look like? Also, answering the call of duty.
The Canadian gaming community is rabid for competition.
Canada plays host to one of the biggest esports competitions in the world.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news. In a bid to advance trade talks with the United States, Canada has just rescinded its digital services tax. The president had pointed to the tax targeting U.S. tech giants on Friday when he abruptly terminated negotiations. In a statement late tonight, Ottawa says Mark Carney and Donald Trump will resume talks with a view towards agreeing on a deal by July 21st. This announcement comes after Trump renewed his annexation threats on American television today. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has that part of the story.
Just days after calling off trade talks with Canada, U.S. President Donald Trump is once again ramping up annexation rhetoric.
I love Canada. Frankly, Canada should be the 51st state, okay? It really should.
In an interview on Fox News today, the president addressed walking away from negotiations.
Canada is a very tough country to deal with, I will say that.
But
and I love Canada.
You have USMCA in place.
I know, but
You'll have to do it.
USMCA is no good if they cheat.
What does that mean?
Well, there's been things going on that we don't like.
Trump today took aim again at Canada's supply management, but this Liberal strategist suggests it could all be a tactic.
I think he sees an opportunity to throw something else into the mix.
Tyler Meredith is a former economic advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and has previously been involved with international negotiations.
There are two things that he responds to. One is a stroke of his ego, and the second is strength. And so as Canada goes into this home stretch of the next couple of weeks, the question is, what are the ego strokes and what are the demonstrations of strength that we can put on the table that he will respond to?
Prime Minister says his government looks to continue the complex negotiations, and some experts suggest the rift could actually be a positive sign.
Expect to see some buildup of pressure as we approach those final days of an ongoing negotiation.
Meanwhile, Trump says he won't extend a 90-day pause on global tariffs set to expire July 9th.
Sources tell CTV News the Prime Minister was unable to make an appearance at today's Pride Parade in Toronto because he was focused on the Trump trade file. Heather?
Jeremy, thank you. CTV's Jeremy Sharon in Ottawa. Trade deals with the U.S. not the only file pressing the Prime Minister. Mark Carney is just over 24 hours away from his self-imposed deadline to make major changes to how trade works within this country, a core component of his election campaign. CTV's Colton Prail on where that promise stands right now.
We could carry the case. Maybe.
This Ottawa brewer dreams of selling his beer across the country, but he can't even get to store shelves just 10 kilometers away.
By the time it gets to the consumer in the glass at a bar in Quebec, it costs more than they're willing to pay. And for us as a small business, it just doesn't make any sense.
Reducing interprovincial trade barriers is something Mark Carney promised to achieve quickly.
From a federal level, to have free trade by Canada Day.
Largely, he's succeeded. The Liberals passed the infrastructure building Bill C-5 this month and have dropped most, but not all, federal exemptions in the Canada Free Trade Agreement. Still, economists say Canadians may not feel much of a difference in their wallets.
Even if we've eliminated everything, I don't think the gains will come to $200 billion a year or anywhere close.
That's because most barriers to trade in Canada exist at the provincial level. Ontario, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Quebec have all introduced or passed legislation to reduce trade barriers. But if Ottawa really wants to make an impact, experts say it needs to build.
We need more and better rail. We need more and better roads. We need improvements to our bridges, to our ports.
Trade barriers aren't all Carney promised by Canada Day.
To sign this order to deliver that tax cut.
Carney delivered on his promised tax cuts to the carbon tax, lowering the bottom rate of the income tax, and eliminating the GST for some first-time home buyers. He's also signed a strategic defense partnership with the European Union, another Canada Day promise. Still, at breweries like this, they're looking for the Prime Minister to deliver on the spirit of his promises as well.
Until they lower the trade barriers, there's still trade barriers.
Experts say if Carney is adamant on getting provinces to match his free trade efforts, he could use transfer payments or other federal dollars to compel premiers to reduce trade barriers. Heather.
CTV's Colton Prale in the nation's capital. Purchasing products from within our country is certainly on the minds of many as we see a surge in patriotism brought on by the current trade war. Made in Canada merchandise is selling fast, and right now, anything red and white as people prepare for Canada Day. CTV's Kamal Karmali on those showcasing Canadian pride.
Block after block, house after house, one Canadian flag after another.
I think I just feel a lot of Canadian pride in general.
That pride, tough to miss leading up to Canada Day.
I'm happy to be Canadian and celebrate that.
Here in Edmonton, this neighborhood has one on every lawn.
People want to support their country.
And that has flag manufacturers and their machines working overtime.
This is the strongest year for flag sales by a considerable margin.
An Angus Reid poll found at the end of last year, 58% of those surveyed were either proud or very proud to be Canadian. But now in June, that surged to 67%.
What changed was just one thing: Donald Trump.
All in response to the U.S. president launching a trade war with Canada and wanting to make us America's 51st state.
Canadians, for the first time, I think, really became offensive in their nationalism.
That surge in Canadian pride also translating into big bucks for small local businesses. We're expected to see an even bigger increase come Canada Day.
Come with me.
Mira Staples sells vintage clothes. Almost all of them have this in common.
It's also made in Canada.
And there's never been a higher demand in her 3 decades of running the store.
They do more than before. Before, nobody really didn't care.
Nearly 40% of Canadian businesses say they've seen an increase in sales since the start of the trade war, especially in the retail, hospitality, and wholesale sectors. So whether people are buying Canadian or showcasing their pride on their porch,
we're more united this year.
One thing's for certain, it'll be a Canada Day unlike few have seen in their lifetime. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
Montreal police say 2 teens are in critical condition after being electrocuted in an abandoned building. Officers responded to a call Saturday afternoon for an explosion in a vacant building. They found a 17- and an 18-year-old badly hurt after handling an electric circuit breaker. Both were rushed to hospital. Police say the teens allegedly broke into the space to steal various items inside. We're hearing from witnesses tonight about the terrifying moments a structure collapsed at an outdoor market in Calgary. CTV's Jordan Kennigan takes us through the frightening ordeal.
On the steps of Calgary City Hall, a celebration and market for Nigerian culture turns into an emergency response.
I was just doing all my standing, and I just saw the whole thing collapse.
Temporary tents, lights, and screens set up for the Saturday market collapsing.
In which some pre-staged lighting and video equipment ended up toppling over onto a bunch of festival goers and causing multiple injuries.
8 people were hurt, including 7 adults and a child. Paramedics treated several on scene and all were taken to hospital. Some were trapped under the fallen structures.
I was just in shock, and my mom rushed over to try and help.
Some of the folks and some of the festival goers and such helped for anybody.
With summer festival season in full swing, events are taking precautions to protect visitors, from creating barriers to block off roads to weighing down tents from the wind.
We're going to be calling in our general investigation section to conduct a review of the incident and inspect some of the equipment to try and determine what happened and in the hopes of mitigating future incidents.
Officials say organizers had all of the proper permits to hold the event at City Hall. Occupational health and safety and police are continuing the investigation and looking into whether those structures were put up improperly. Jordan Cadigan, CTV News, Calgary.
Canadian athletic brand Lululemon has filed a lawsuit in California against Costco, accusing the wholesaler of selling knockoffs of some of its most popular products. The lawsuit alleges that Costco is selling dupes under its Kirkland label that copy Lululemon's scuba hoodies and other products. The Canadian company is requesting monetary damages and has initiated a court order to force the removal of the alleged knockoffs. Costco has not yet filed a response. There's new information out tonight looking at the link between what we say and how we feel. The spotlight is particularly on revitalizing Indigenous languages. CTV's Alison Bamford explains that doesn't just impact culture, it can also improve health.
His Cree name is Niwetston, and it means the four nests in the Sundance Lodgepole.
A name that carries strength and guidance passed down to Christine Fiddler's son in a ceremony. It's a long-standing tradition for the Waterhen Lake First Nation family.
My own parents have given each of their children Cree names, and I've given both my children Cree names as well.
Fiddler isn't fluent in Cree, but she is trying to learn, picking up bits and pieces from elders and podcasting to pass down to her children.
We're starting to see the importance of talking our Cree language and learning it.
Part of that importance is linked to health and well-being. New research out of the University of British Columbia suggests speaking traditional language is closely linked to improvements in physical and mental health and success in education for Indigenous people.
And today we're going to learn how to say eagle in Michif.
To reach a broader audience, educators and content creators are revitalizing their language online. Simon Bird is the man behind hashtag Cree Simon Says, a Facebook group that connects others with simple Cree teachings.
They feel that connection, and when you feel that connection, you're not a stranger and you belong.
Offline, he's teaching his daughter about Indigenous medicines and the Cree words attached to each.
When you name it by its rightful name in Indigenous languages, you start to take a look at it differently, like it's a person instead of a thing.
Small words that can make a big difference. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has awarded a pilot killed in an overnight Russian attack with the country's highest honor. The pilot died in a crash trying to repel hundreds of drones, cruise and ballistic missiles fired by Russia into south and central Ukraine. It comes as Zelensky today issued a decree withdrawing Ukraine from the Ottawa Convention, which bans the production and use of anti-personnel mines. Authorities in northwestern Idaho say at least 2 firefighters have been killed and a third is in hospital after what's being called an ambush attack. The shooting started after firefighters were called for a brush fire. The sheriff's department now saying it's found a deceased man with a gun at the scene and has lifted a shelter-in-place order. And heat waves are gripping parts of Europe with extreme conditions and record high temperatures. Spain has been hit the hardest with temperatures pushing past 40 degrees Celsius. Coming up, Pride with a powerful message.
Every group counts. Everyone's voice needs to be heard.
The sights, sounds, and emotion of Canada's biggest Pride parade. Plus, how Beyonce found herself in danger high above fans at her hometown concert.
Stop war!
Some very scary moments for pop superstar Beyonce during her Cowboy Carter concert Saturday night in her hometown of Houston, Texas.
Stop.
In social media posts, the singer is heard saying stop as the red car she rides in above the crowd tilted dangerously to one side. The car was eventually lowered onto the stage and she was able to finish the concert. Rainbow colors flooded the streets of Toronto as hundreds of thousands of people turned out for the city's 44th annual Pride Parade. The festival is facing financial troubles, but organizers are confident they'll find a path forward. CTV's Scott Lightfoot has more on Canada's largest Pride event.
It is the largest celebration of its kind in the country. Tens of thousands of people took to Yonge Street today to show off their pride. Thousands more cheered them on from the sidewalk. For some, it was their first Pride.
I think it's very important to support everybody and just love everybody and show that we love everybody.
For others, showing up on Sunday to show support for the 2S LGBTQ+ community has been a tradition for decades.
The diversity of the groups has increased from small amounts to big amounts. Every group counts. Everyone's voice needs to be heard.
The annual parade is the main event of Toronto Pride. This year, the organization dealt with a number of financial challenges, including rising costs and the loss of a number of corporate sponsors. On the parade route, Pride Toronto's CEO said, despite the issues, the event will continue to grow.
Pride Toronto was one way 47 years ago. We are not going to go back to where we were. We are going to continue to build to make Pride Toronto stronger, bigger, and more inclusive of everyone.
Trans are human rights!
As in years past, protest was also a part of these Pride festivities. This small group delayed the parade on several occasions to voice their opposition to corporate pride and call for a free Palestine. For the parade's Grand Marshal, who's attended the event since the beginning, protest was the genesis of what's become an internationally attended celebration.
From the beginning, it was celebration and demonstration. It should always be celebration and demonstration.
With 2S LGBTQ+ rights being challenged or eroded in other countries, many say Toronto and Canada remains a place to celebrate.
Pride is about, and we're all in, for love and justice. All in to say that you have the freedom to love who you want and the freedom to be who you are.
Volunteers were out along the parade route looking for donations today. You heard the executive director say there's a hope this event will grow, but with a significant, almost $1 million funding shortfall, if that money can't be found, it's likely that future editions will have to be scaled down. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead, thinking about a summer road trip. We'll show you some of Canada's unique and quirky roadside attractions to put on your travel list. If you're planning to hit the road this summer, then this next story is for you. A visual journey through some Canadian roadside marvels, the perfect spots to see as more Canadians choose to travel within our own country. CTV's Sarah Plowman on the hidden gems waiting to be discovered.
In a country as large as Canada, the open road feels endless. Exits that lure you to lunch or a destination of another kind. The promise of the world's largest axe in Nakawik, New Brunswick.
It's intriguing, very different.
The axe is as advertised, 15 meters tall, 10 meters wide, built in the early 90s when the community was named Forestry Capital of Canada.
Pretty large, pretty intimidating. Probably chop some big logs with that.
It brings a lot of tourists in, and even the community is very proud of what we have here.
Canada is full of roadside attractions, like the Big Apple, the world's largest curling rock. How about a giant goose, or the world's largest beaver, pierogi, nickel, mosquito, and on and on. There's Mac the Moose, who once lost his tallest title to Norway, but reclaimed it with taller antlers.
The idea that these quirky, whimsical things were a good way of putting your small community on the map started in the middle of the last century, in the 1950s when people were hitting the roads again. It started in the States and it definitely crept up to Canada.
Not all hold records, but hold our attention, like this big potato at a market outside of Fredericton.
New Brunswick's roadside attractions are a perfect mix of folk art, tourist traps, and civic pride.
Take the world's largest fiddleheads, salmon or lobster in Shediac.
Cute or scary?
It's cute, yeah. But lobsters are really scary and really weird.
Dots on the map that keep drawing drivers away from the road. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Shediac, New Brunswick.
Some great sights to see. Still ahead, a virtual competition with a huge cash prize. The Ontario City scoring big bucks through a video game tournament. We leave you tonight with a dream come true for video game enthusiasts. The Call of Duty League Championship, one of the biggest esports tournaments in the world, chose a Canadian city to host its big event. The tournament taking over a Kitchener, Ontario stadium to the delight of thousands. CTV's Hannah Schmidt takes you to the action.
The gunfire was virtual, but the adrenaline very real.
And that's another 4 dead with Omen still in control of the spawn.
This wasn't just a gaming tournament, it was a global spectacle. And this weekend, the On in Kitchener became ground zero for competitive esports as the Call of Duty League Championship took over.
It's been fun. People have come from all over the United States, from the UK, from mainland Europe, some as far as Mexico and beyond, just to watch this event. So we're thrilled to have them.
8 of the world's most elite teams went head-to-head in a battle of reflexes, strategy, and serious stakes, all leading to Sunday's electric final matchup.
Kitchener has never seen this level of esports competition, first of its kind, and the biggest in the world for Call of Duty this year.
Prize today is like $800,000. Like, it's a big deal.
The experience of going to a CDL event is unmatched. If you are a fan of the games at all, if you want to see what the scene is like, come to one of these events. Even if you only go once, it is going to be life-changing.
I've been competing for 4 years. 4 years, and all 4 years has been a great time, and finally this year I've gotten my championships.
The weekend brought more than just gamers. It drew tourists, content creators, and digital superfans, filling hotels, supporting small businesses, and putting the city on an international map.
Our guess is somewhere between $9 to $12 million of economic activity throughout the event, and that's fantastic. That's a great scenario for a 4-day event. We couldn't be more happy.
Those within the esports community are calling it a cultural shift. What used to be seen as a subculture has hit full throttle. Esports is now stadium-worthy.
This fan base isn't just local, it's all across the country, it's all across the world.
The local gaming scene is hopeful that weekends like this become the new normal in Waterloo Region. Hannah Schmidt, CTV News, Kitchener.
That is our newscast for this Sunday night. I'm Heather Butts. Thank you for watching. I will be here tomorrow with our early edition of CTV National News at 5:30, and Omar will be here at 11. I hope you can join us. Good night.